let's talk a little bit about some of the controls you get here. Let's look at just the Rhodes track for a second. We'll solo this, and what soloing is we're only hearing this track. It basically shuts off the sound playback from the other instruments. So at this point in time, we can only hear this one track. Now what we have here, this meter here is showing you how much signal is coming back through this channel. And that's useful if I were to what's called normalize this track. Oops, I normalized the wrong one. So now that track is a lot louder. And basically what normalizing does is take the highest peak or the loudest thing that was recorded or is in the audio track and pushes that all the way up here to 0 decibels. So basically you can't go above 0 decibels because then it goes into clipping and distortion. So this basically took the loudest thing that was there, which was down here or something, and pushes it all the way up to the top. Oh, it actually was right there. Right here, you can see that this track hit negative 0.1 decibels, which is just about the loudest you can get on a single track. Now, you don't want all of your tracks like that because the summing of a whole bunch of tracks that are basically as loud as they can be means that the end result is way too loud. But that gives you an idea of what this meter is. So this is showing you what the playback is. Now, also we have here, this is a pan control. Now, pan controls how it gets routed from the right to the left. This is another parameter that is automatable. So the signal is showing you that because it's panned to the center, it's coming through both right and left channels, even though this is a mono source, meaning that it only has one channel. It's being routed because this is a stereo project, meaning that the output is going to 2 channels. This one channel is being routed to both the left and the right channel equally. And if we move this, say 61% to the right, now you'll see that reflected in the metering. And I can actually change the metering here, big meter. So now you can see. And let's put it back the way it was before, because I don't like that at all. Now, this is the volume fader, just like you would find on an analog mixer console. Here you have, this is your input selection. So if I was setting up this channel to record, I would click this, and this gives me a number of options to select which input I want to record. Now, on my particular setup, I have 8 analog inputs plus 2 digital inputs. This is actually a stereo. So I can choose the left side of the stereo or the right, and that'll get recorded as a mono track because this input is just for mono. Now, if I select stereo, these inputs are grouped in 2s. So this is the input for analog input 1 and 2. Then there's 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and so on and so forth. You can even do analog input 8 to digital SPDIF input left and group those as a stereo channel. You can also select a MIDI input to record if you wanted to control a virtual instrument or a synth. In this panel here, this is the that little I/O stands for input and output. And this is basically where you can route this track to go. So this is telling you that this track is going to the master bus, which are 1 and 2. And this track contains 2 channels. And this is the volume. Now, we could send this someplace else, which is where this is here. And you can see this already has a send to the verb, which is short for reverb. Now, I have the reverb muted, but if I unmute it, you can hear. Now it sounds like it's in a large hall or something. And that's how I added reverb to this particular project. I took the signal that was coming from this channel, and not only is it going to the master, it's also going to the reverb, but a lot less of it's going to the reverb. See, this represents the full signal amount. And then it was more like down here. And that's how you can kind of adjust. Now you can also set this track to receive. Say I want to get some of the rhythm guitar for whatever reason coming back on this track. I don't know why you would do that for this particular track, but as you can see, you can have a lot of flexibility. You could also set, let me turn that off. You can also set this track to play back through one of the outputs of your audio interface. So if for whatever reason you might want to send just this channel out, you could send it through any one of the outputs, any one of the analog or digital outputs. So you can see you have a lot of flexibility. And then here, of course, you can name the track. This is the mute button. So it's actually solo and muted at the same time, which doesn't really do much. And then here is where you can add effects. You can see right here it says effects. And this is when you click it the first time in this particular application, it brings up the browser to browse what effects you might want. So we could add, say, an equalizer here to this channel. And now you basically have a power button for this, which tells you that the effects are now bypassed or they are enabled. So with an EQ, for example, let me solo this, we could take and modify the frequency bands to kind of shape the frequency spectrum of this particular instrument. Now you could do this on any instrument, and that's often how music is produced. Each track may get a little or a lot of equalization to bring out certain parts of the audio spectrum. It's what gives maybe vocals a super crisp sound, or jazz guitar that really kind of mellow sound. In addition to EQ, there are tons of effects, from compressors to reverbs to gates, which let the sound come through at a particular level and keeps it out when it's below that particular level. These are just the stock plugins that come with Reaper. There's tons and tons of other plugins. These are a plugin that uses the VST protocol. It's basically a somewhat universal plugin system that works with a bunch of different applications. In fact, many of these are available for just about every multi-track audio application. And there's tons of things in here, from guitar cabinet emulators to all kinds of different compressors to things that make it sound low fidelity, all kinds of different things in here. That's pretty much it. So you can see with all these controls, you can get a ton of flexibility in how you can record and then what you can do after it. Now, in addition to that, we can come in here and take this WAV file and we can chop it up. So we can come in here and slice it here. We solo this up. We can move this part over. We can take this, copy it, and now this section here will basically repeat. You see, I caught a little bit of the end of that phrase there, but so you can do this on a more somewhat global scale, where we can take all of these and duplicate them. So say I just recorded the chorus to a song and we need another one. Well, I could record it again, or I could just take the good recording that I already have, copy it, and move it down, and now I have another chorus that's ready to go. And so you can have a ton of flexibility. In fact, I did another tutorial for AudioTutsPlus.com in which I took this very project and I intentionally recorded some things rather sloppily, like this tambourine track here. And the timing of each one of these tambourine recordings, this is 2, and then I grouped them in a stereo channel here, was all over the place. I mean, it sounded like I had never picked up a tambourine before, or I didn't know how to play drums at all. And so you can get in here and make really, really fine adjustments. You can cut this track and then move it so that it lines, each one of these little hits lines up with a beat. And that's how I basically fixed my tambourine track, because the timing was all over the place. And this is another thing that's used in modern recordings, where they'll take a drummer's drum set and they'll take it and chop it all up and make all of the hits, every single hit, be right in time, where, you know, if you were to hear the original, there would be slight variations, even from a pro drummer, you know, a studio drummer. There'd be slight variations and fluctuations to each hit, and everything may not be metronomically perfect, but that's a way that you can do it so that when you take a chorus and you need to grab it right here at beat 1 at measure 10, you will not be grabbing a note that's slightly ahead or slightly behind. You'll be grabbing one that's right on there, so that when you paste stuff around, it's a really accurate way to do that, and then you don't have timing issues if someone's trying to record a guitar part, let's say, to a drum track that's not metronomically perfect, you know, there's some fluctuations, then his kind of perception of that is going to be all kinds of screwed up. The principles and ideas that I demoed here in Reaper are possible in many applications. Hopefully this has given you an idea of what is possible in multi-track recording software.